Today on the program, is Major League Baseball raising money to pay for gender reassignment surgeries for children? Nate Hotchman from National Review will join us to tell us what his research has found. Also, a year after the Taliban was given control of Afghanistan, what is life like there for Christians? Todd Nettleton from Voice of the Martyrs will join us to share the challenges and the way God is working through them. Also, Mikhail Gorbachev, the man who, along with President Ronald Reagan, ended the Cold War, has died. Professor William Inboden will join us to help us understand Mikhail Gorbachev's legacy and how we should remember him. But first, our headline today. As you just heard, last weekend, a senior FBI official in Washington abruptly resigned after coming under congressional scrutiny for suspected political bias related to his handling of the Hunter Biden laptop investigation. Now, the Washington Times has received reports from whistleblowers who allege corruption within the FBI ranks. Republicans on Capitol Hill have said they must investigate if they take the majority in November. Meanwhile, Attorney General Merrick Garland responded with a memo to all Department of Justice employees in which he reiterated the department's policy of prohibiting communications with members of Congress. To help me sort all of this out is U.S. Representative Dan Bishop, who's a member of the House Judiciary Committee and the Homeland Security Committee. He represents the 9th Congressional District of North Carolina. Congressman Bishop, good to see you today.
Hey, Joseph. Good to be with you. And by no means are you the JV team, brother.
Oh, well, you're kind. I mean, I am, but thank you so much. I appreciate that. But let's get into this story. There's lots of back and forth. We know that some FBI officials resigned last week over some concerns about impartiality. We'll put it that way. And now we have these reports from whistleblowers. What's your reaction to all of this?
It's very troubling. Ever since the raid on Trump's Mar-a-Lago compound, the questions have been multiplying, but that appeared at the same time almost that new whistleblowers came forward to Senators Grassley and Johnson and also Ranking Member Jim Jordan. There's just a swirl of controversy that continues to sort of go on and on around the Department of Justice and FBI, and Americans are justifiably concerned about it. And Republicans have appropriately been asking questions. But I would say these newest developments, I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. Mr. Thibault, who was who left the FBI Washington field office in the last couple of days, that appears to be there's a reason that he was essentially ushered out, I'm sure.
Now we hear about these whistleblowers, plural. Do you know how many people we're talking about?
I know that I've heard the word 20 mentioned in connection with by Ranking Member Jordan over the course of the last year, roughly. And I don't know what the numbers are for Senators Grassley and Johnson, except I know they're different people. So there are a lot of people within the FBI who are concerned about the way that agency is being managed and about the implications, the apparent politicization of the FBI, and it should be of concern to every single American. It should be of concern to President Biden as well.
Well, it seems that one man's whistleblower is another man's traitor, and it depends on the side of the issue that you're on, and it seems to swing in a partisan way. And we know that Attorney General Merrick Garland responded to these reports of whistleblowers with a memo to the department, reminding everyone that it is against department policy to have communications with members of Congress. Is this an appropriate response? Is that just a way to remind staff what the rules are, or do we think it's something more serious than that?
Well, the timing is very remarkable, coming amidst all of these developments, and it seems to be internally contradictory. So the folks who've come to the two senators that I mentioned and the Ranking Member Jordan are FBI whistleblowers. The law protects whistleblowers. And this statement from the Department of Justice at once discourages or talks about, how employees of the Justice Department should not be in touch with Congress except through channels. But on the other hand, they say, but we don't mean to undermine whistleblower protections. So which is it? I think they are speaking out of both sides of their mouth. And I think that's the last thing the Justice Department and the FBI need to be doing at this point in time.
I think one of the challenges that Attorney General Merrick Garland has is his history, which is not necessarily his fault. But because he was a nominee to the Supreme Court by President Obama, and his nomination was stopped essentially by the election of President Trump, his role now as Attorney General, which it seems to be perpetually investigating former President Trump in some way, it just doesn't smell right. Because even if he is behaving above board in all ways, the fact that his opportunity to be on the Supreme Court was stopped by President Trump just kind of creates this appearance of impropriety, even if there isn't real impropriety. And to that point, Congressman Bishop, do we think that the Republicans in Congress are going to have a chance to investigate this issue? And if so, do you think there's a way to do this in a way that doesn't just continue to inflame the partisan differences? Is there a way to bring people together around a common set of facts and a common understanding of what our country is supposed to be?
Yeah, Joseph, it's very difficult to accomplish anything on a bipartisan basis in Washington as attitudes are now displayed. And obviously people would say this is one-sided, but I've seen it displayed with, without exception by Democrats in control. They've not sought to work with Republicans. They've used their majority to run over Republicans. I think we ought to have an open hand to try to encourage Democrats to join with us if we're in the majority as we conduct oversight. But oversight needs to be done in an unprecedented way. It means it needs to be creative. It needs to be aggressive, but a lot of it can occur in private. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a public hearing where everyone's trying to get sound bites developed. But we need to know, what is the problem? I don't think it's in the interest of either party for the FBI and the Department of Justice to be politicized. Now, Democrats have used it in a politicized way since President Trump first came on the scene in 2016. But and we've seen that over and over again. I think to your point about the Attorney General, he has unfortunately stepped right into the middle of that when he issued his memo last October targeting parents of school children and trying to suggest that they're harbingers of threats and the like. But I think nobody in America, the people on both Democrat and Republican side out there, do not desire to see this government become a partisan battering ram, or to continue to be. And so I think if we all get together on that score, we can make progress together.
And so to that point, to maybe ask you to rephrase that a bit, then do you really believe that people care if the FBI has been politicized? Is that a bipartisan concern in people's heart of hearts, where they understand that if the FBI essentially becomes a political wing of the White House, that's a real problem for our country? Do both parties understand that?
Joseph, I just had a telephone call today with someone who's very influential on the Homeland Security side, and I also serve on that committee. And one of the things that person said was exactly that there may be momentary political gain that people want to have. And so when they see the FBI, DOJ go out and do the bidding of Democrats and interfere in elections on their behalf and the like, they may think in the short term that that's beneficial. But all of these things can be turned around. And in fact, it gets very difficult to continue to be the party that favors neutral, fair, and unpoliticized law enforcement if you're always the victim of the other side using it that way. Yeah. So, I don't think Democrats in the country, the people, the American people, or independents, any more than Republicans, believe that, using the FBI that way is the right answer.
Yeah, I agree with you, certainly within the public. I hope it's true within Washington state, or within the nation, within Washington, D.C., excuse me. My concern is that humility and recognizing mistakes and errors and trying to correct those is seen as politically vulnerable, so nobody ever does it anymore. And of course, nobody can govern perfectly, but the incentives to admit our mistakes and correct our mistakes just don't seem to be there. But Congressman Bishop, I want to change topics with you very briefly. President Biden Biden gave a speech yesterday where he may have surprised a few of his supporters with his pro-police message. He said the answer is not to defund the police, but to increase funding. Let's play clip one.
When it comes to public safety in this nation, the answer is not defund the police, it's fund the police. Fund the police.
Now, this represents a significant change in his party's messaging. And Congressman Bishop, I know you have something to say, but I want to play one more thing. And I think I'm going to maybe steal some words from your mouth. But let's play clip 2 to get a sense of what his party has been saying recently.
Suck it up. Defunding the police has to happen. We need to defund the police.
We will be moving funding from the NYPD to youth initiatives and social services.
Yes, I support the defund movement.
You know, a lot of us were asked if we could imagine a future without police back in 2017 when we were running for office. And I answered yes to that question.
We are going to reduce funding in the police department and redirect that money.
Police departments are taking a sizable amount of the budget of a lot of municipalities and other entities. We need to look at those budgets, pull some of the money back, and invest it in other things.
It means a dramatic reduction in the number of police in our poor communities, and particularly our poor Black and brown communities.
I'm asking you to ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice to make sure that overfunded police departments are defunded?
Congressman Bishop, of course, that's a montage. Several Democratic members of Congress, Mayor de Blasio, among others. Is this an intra-party fight?
Well, perhaps so. As you say, the words in their own words convict them in a broad swath of the Democratic Party. In fact, I would say this, Joseph, President Biden's comments about that and saying you shouldn't defund the police, fund it, it comes awfully late. And so you'd have to say even he, if it's an intra-party fight, has been absent on the fighting field for months and months and months while this developed in 2020 and carried on through the early part of his presidency. And here's what's worse. When he chose to trot that out, it appears to be a cynical effort to demonize half the country because he falsely accuses Republicans of being for defunding. So it does seem to be a very disturbing, despicable kind of commentary by Biden at this point in time.
Yeah, and we actually don't have the time at this point to play that clip where he goes on to accuse Republicans of trying to defund the police. It is irony. Some might call it gaslighting, but it is political season, and sometimes up is down and down is up. But Congressman Bishop, thanks for stopping by and helping us understand it today.
Thank you, Joseph. Good to be with you.